I'm going to introduce, again, Tricia Kennedy. She's going to take the stage. She just left, took a breather, and now she's back. Here she is.
So my schools always dread me walking into the building because ever since I got technology kind of assigned to my title and my name, I walk in the building and all of their technology just goes down. You know, they just like stay away from us. So I'm just proving that point here today. I'm so glad to get to talk with you all. I feel very honored and privileged. I really, really hope I don't waste the next 30 minutes or so of your time. I'm assuming I have 30 minutes. And I've got my slide deck up here so that you can get to it, because I'm going to go really fast through some of the things that I'm going to show you about what Gwinnett's doing. And if you have any desire at all to go back and look at any of it, this will give you the chance to do that. It's just a tiny URL, and it's LC19 Gwinnett, and Gwinnett has 2 N's and 2 T's. So I know I'm amongst my peeps today, even though I feel familiar with you, even though I don't know most of you. I will tell you you're really scary looking from here, though. But I do believe that you all really believe that this is true. And I also think that you're here for really the same kind of reasons that I'm here, to make teachers' jobs easier and make teachers more successful. And that's what our jobs are really all about. If we can accomplish those things, we've kind of accomplished our goals. So what I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes is just some of the things that Gwinnett has been doing over the last many years, trying to reach some of these goals. Let me ask you, though, to have a goat mentality while I talk. Every single one of you could share your story, and it would be equally as riveting and equally as important to all of us. But I ask, when I come to these conferences, especially like a learning council, I'd like to think like this goat. This is a statue that's actually in my city. It's at a major intersection of 2 roads, 2 4-lane roads, and you can see it's right there in front of a cemetery. But don't you want to be that goat right there? You know, don't you want to be that goat for a little while? I spend most of my time as one of these goats, head down, working on the work. But every once in a while, I want to peek my head up and look around and see what else is going out there that I might learn from. And so that's what I feel like we're doing here this weekend. And I hope that for the next few minutes as I share, that you'll have that kind of a goat mentality. You might hear some things that you go, oh my gosh, we did that ages ago. We're way better at it. Yay, let that be affirming. You might glean a little bit of few things that maybe you might want to work on next, but you might also say, that sounds great, but I can't go there. Thank you. Tomorrow, Scarlett. So that's what I'd ask you to do over the next few minutes as I share with you Gwinnett's story about trying to make our teachers' jobs easier and make them more successful. So Gwinnett's a large district. We're 12th largest in the country. We're a suburb of Atlanta. We're kind of an urban, suburban district. You can see from our stats there, we're a truly diverse district in the truest sense of the words. And we've been growing. We're continuing to grow. About 1,500 students a year right now. It was 5,000 a few years ago. But we've been meeting with success with that diverse group, and you can see that from some of our accolades. And I really believe that some of the vision that I'm sharing with you today is a part of why we've been meeting with that success. So I'll start back in our e-class, which was our digital conversion initiative that we started back in about 2010, 2011 is when the superintendent gave us the charge for it. We've always been a district of technology. Our superintendent, who's been there 24 years in the same seat, I'm not kidding, that's the truth. He's fabulous, and he came from CTAE, so he's always had a technology focus. So we've been a technology district for a while, but back in 2010, 2011, we refined that vision. He gave us the charge to really transform instruction. And rather than, if the technology works, fingers crossed, and rather than me telling you about that vision, I'm going to show you a video that we put out at that time to help our teachers understand what we were about to do with e-class. So this came out in about 2011.
The classroom for me
is
The classroom for me is where I can get the extra help I need, when I need it, and not just during school hours.
The classroom for me is where I'm involved in my learning.
where I don't just read about things that happen, I experience them.
The classroom for me is one where I can collaborate with other teachers.
Where I can make learning come alive and relevant for today's learners.
The classroom for me doesn't have walls. It's anywhere I can get online.
I just finished teaching a unit on fractions, and after the assessment, I can see that Mark is still struggling. I used to have to search through a number of different books, websites, and other resources to find additional activities for students like Mark. But now I can find additional interventions for students like Mark on fractions and send them to him directly. With a click of a button, he has extra access at home, at school, or anywhere.
The classroom for me is one where information about all of my students is available in one place.
Where I can work with other students to solve my problems.
The classroom for me is one that prepares me for college.
My classroom is not confined to this room. Technology takes us outside of these walls. We may listen to a college lecture, visit a rainforest to study acid rain, or take a virtual tour inside a plant cell. Students get to experience all this firsthand instead of just reading about it or watching a video. And my students don't just collaborate with each other, they're able to interact with students around the world. Technology helps me teach them to think for themselves, so they're ready for the next level.
The classroom for me is one that challenges me.
Where my students and I work together and learn together.
Where I easily access resources to help my students.
Where I can challenge myself.
Where I can meet the needs of all my students.
This class is studying Europe right now, and the students are working collaboratively to draft legislation that will increase trade activity for European countries. In order to do that, they're researching the government, the European economy, and the geographic advantages and obstacles to trade by taking virtual field trips to key cities in Europe. The students have even connected with a local resident to learn about life in Europe. They're using these different resources outside of class to collaborate and bring the study of Europe to life.
The classroom for me is E-Class.
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 The classroom for me
is E-Class.
So doesn't that sound awesome? Isn't that a great vision? I think I'm pretty sure it's the same vision that you all have and have probably been working on in your districts. So that was in about 2010 or 2011. And so what I want to share with you today is where we are in meeting that reality. So I'm going to show you some samples from our ecosystem now, talk a little bit about that pathway that we went down and our lessons learned and some guiding thoughts if I can get through all of it. So I'll start with, we really want it to be a seamless experience for both our students and our teachers, and this is a shot of our parent portal, which is the first thing that we did because we wanted parents involved too. And you can see this is actually my son, me as a parent, and my son, and seeing information about my son. I'm not above public shaming. You can see his grades there. But then the very next move that we went on was our student portal. So this is again his portal, and he's in 11th grade. That's all his digital textbooks there, as well as the additional digital resources that he can access from his portal, including his learning management system course page, the assessment system, media catalog, etc. And then he can click over into his grades. If you want to, please text him right now and tell him he should be studying his pre-calculus even as we speak. So that was the student and the parent, but what we really have focused on in the last few years is that seamless experience for our teachers. This is at their portal, and we have a portal for every employee, but this is the teacher's look. And I'm just going to click here to show you all the different types of applications that we've built into the portal over the last few years, everything from data to our student information system, our learning management system, that app vetting thing that I talked about in the panel, security, professional development that all of our teachers have to go through, a whole bunch of other things. If you look across the top tabs, there's a lot more there for them. Hopefully everything they need to do their work on a daily basis. That includes that teacher resources link. This is what it would look like if an 8th grade teacher clicked on that link. They would pull up all their digital textbooks on the left-hand side, and then they have the additional digital resources, including Safari Montage on the right-hand side, right? I mentioned that they have data dashboards. This is one sample where they're looking at their students, their attendance, behavior, and course completion. And we've got a trajectory towards graduation starting all the way at 3rd grade. And these give them indicators if any of their students are at risk, so they can plan interventions accordingly based on where their students are. So that's just one of the pieces of data that we provide to them on a regular basis. We also model, Leilani mentioned the curriculum maps yesterday and how important that is when she was going over some of the stats yesterday. So we do that, and this is a piece of the kind of curriculum map maps we provide at the district level. Our curriculum directors have written these sample course pages that are in our learning management system, which is D2L. This is for Algebra 1, so the teachers can access these student-facing activities, and then these are digital activities that they can then, that are aligned with the content in Algebra 1, that they can then pull into their courses and choose to use with their students. We have that for pretty much all of our core courses and many of our elective courses as well. So like I said, we got a lot of stuff for teachers, right? So what difference is it making in these 10 years? How close are we to that vision of that classroom of the future? Well, let me show you that as well. This is a little screencast mimicking a day in the life of a Gwinnett teacher, and we'll see what they're using it for now. And I want you to keep in mind, is it making their job easier, and how? Does it have potential to make them more successful? Those two questions we started with. Whoops.
Welcome to a day in the life of a teacher in Gwinnett County Public Schools. I'm an elementary school teacher who has a wide variety of resources available to me. You joined me at the perfect time. I have 40 minutes before my students arrive. I typically use this time to capitalize on these resources to impact my instruction and my students immediately. Here, let me show you. First, I need to check in on some assignments my students submitted yesterday. That's in eClass, our learning management system. Check out all these videos my students recorded in response to this question I posted. I can see in this report here that Sabrina didn't submit her homework assignment. I'll leave a quick note on her desk asking her to post her assignment during arrival this morning. Everyone else submitted, so I'm going to add an item to my to-do list to remind me to give these students feedback. I can bring my iPad or phone to lunch with me and record verbal feedback in response to these posts. My students will be anxiously awaiting my feedback. They always tell me how excited they are to log in and hear my thoughts. Next, I need to review a ticket out the door. This was also completed on my eClass page using the quizzes tool. I love that this saves me time because it is automatically graded for me. These reports show me class trends overall and class trends related to each question. Yesterday, I saw some students struggling with using number line and array strategies to multiply. Question 1 in my quick check had students using number lines. This report shows me that 3 of my students struggled with this strategy. That's less than I thought. They must have cleared up their misconceptions during collaborative and independent tasks yesterday. I'll add a ClassWorks reteaching activity for these 3 students to complete in class today. I'll simply click here to access ClassWorks, search for the topic needed, and there we go. In just a few minutes, I was able to make timely instructional moves to respond to the needs of my students. Now that I've addressed those items that have immediate implications for today's work, I'm ready to dig into planning my next unit on rocks. I know that there are Safari montage videos, leveled texts, and database topics about rocks. I'm going to create an activity in eClass that compiles some of these resources for my students. The first activity I'll link is a discussion board where students can post questions they have about an image. Then I'll link to the specific databases and leveled texts. For the Safari montage video, I'll simply tap into the database here, search for my video, and add it to eClass. Great, this activity is all set for next week. Well, that's the bell. Thanks for joining me as I used our portal resources to prepare for a great day of teaching and learning.
Okay, so help me with those 2 questions. Can anybody just give me a popcorn as to a popcorn testimony as to what you saw that might have made a teacher's job easier with that system? Anybody? What might have made the teacher's job easier in that system?
Plug and play.
Plug and play, okay. One other one. Reporting feedback, okay. What might have given a teacher more opportunity to be more successful in student learning with that system? Any thoughts there? How could it have helped a teacher help a student learn, be more successful?
The reteach activity.
Reteach activity, okay, yeah, that they were able to pull in pretty quickly. Anything else that you saw there?
Customizing for their student needs.
kind of their modality, being able to access different content based on their learning modalities or whatever. All right, so we're not there yet, y'all, I promise. We're not at that click and button that the video of the future projected for us, but we're on a pathway. But it's taken us 10 years. It's kind of, you know, if you asked us how we've gotten there, well, this is a really good symbol of what it's been like. There's been awful lot of curves along the way. You know that old saying, a journey of 1,000 miles is about 1,000 miles long. And that's what it's felt like. Let me share the pathway with you just real quickly. The key, I've got a key down at the bottom. You see green is leadership, where we had to have leadership actions. Blue is where we had critical decision points. Yellow is our partnerships, and then the professional development that you see there. I'm not going to take the time to go through each of these steps with you, but let me go through some key some lessons that we've learned along the way in these years. So this is just 2010 through 2014, then we'll look at the more recent years. First of all, it required leadership at the top level, and it was the superintendent's charge, and his immediate charge was that it needed to be led by instruction, not technology. To the fact that I was overall of curriculum at the time, and he asked me to move to be the executive sponsor of this initiative, so it was very obvious in the district that this was the curriculum initiative. Our vision initially outstripped our reality, y'all. We thought we were going to get a one-stop shop suite. We started building with a partner, and it failed in a big, giant way. And so when that happened, we had decided that we had to buy and not build. And so that meant we were moving to a best-in-breed model. So it required us, and Leilani mentioned this yesterday too, it required us to step back and really think through exactly what we needed and get that on paper. What were we really after for our teachers and our students' experiences? And we went through that requirement process and ended up with D2L as our learning management system partner. We knew we needed a plug-and-play experience because the whole point of it was a seamless experience for teachers and students, right? That meant that we had to go to interoperability, and we became very active partners in IMS Global Consortium as a result. I want to proselytize, get involved, getting engaged with that, y'all. We're not going to be able to do all the things we've been talking about the last 2 days without that, our suppliers and us committing to interoperability. We started small with a small pilot of D2L. Small for us was 30 schools. We quickly moved to 90 schools very shortly after that. It probably wasn't small enough. We needed more time, really, to figure out exactly what teachers needed for them to start using all of these resources. And we really underestimated how much modeling they needed. So you saw the sample course pages. Those came on kind of late in the game when we realized, hey, we got to give them more. We've got to feed them more for what they need to be able to do this work. All right, so moving forward then, in the most recent years where we've been, we built it. We did staff development. We did sample course pages, but the teachers still weren't coming and the students weren't engaged in it. So our superintendent said there's not enough fish in the pond. We got to get more digital content out there so they have something to come and use. And that's when we started partnering with Safari to build our content in. And it required, you know, again, that seamless motion for teachers. We had to have partnerships between our partners. So Safari and D2L had to come to the table and say they were going to be willing to integrate so that our teachers could have that one-stop shop motion. It required great partnerships. And then we had to change our practices too. Like that whole interoperability idea, we had to adopt it. We had to kind of draw a line in the sand with those that we were working with our RFPs, our contracts, et cetera. And that meant changing the way we were doing things. We had to say, we want thin common cartridge to come in for our digital, because it's going to come in through Safari, and you've got to commit to that. And then we had to realize too along the way where we had to kind of pull back, because sometimes we weren't quite as sophisticated as we wish we were and able to do something. So most of Tim's gray hair has come from the fact that of these years we were using their digital content but not using their learning object repository, even though we had access to it. But we weren't ready until a couple of years ago, y'all, to be that sophisticated. And now our teachers are uploading their own content in there. We're pulling all of our content from other providers in through that learning object repository, but we weren't ready until we were ready. And then finally, in our path, miracles. Sometimes miracles are just needed, right? So a day off is great motivation. In 2017, 2018, Irma came through Atlanta, Hurricane Irma. We used all of our built-in makeup days in September. If anybody's been in Georgia in January, when any little drop of frozen precipitation falls, you know, it stops the bus, literally. So we ended up with 3 days off in January, and we didn't want to have to make them up, and we felt like our teachers and our students were by this time ready, so we did fully online days those 3 days. And I will tell you, adoption after that spiked, and it's been at a much higher level since then. So leadership lessons, you know, what I wish I had known, as our poet laureate of our generation, Rod Stewart said, what I wish I knew now, knew when I was younger. 4 things that I would share with you as guidance in this journey after we've been in it this long.
Do you know what the secret of life is?
No, what?
This.
Your finger?
One thing. Just one thing.
That's great, but what's the one thing?
That's what you gotta figure out.
Yeah, that's the G version. There's a PG-13 version if you want to look it up too. But what I would say is it was really critical for us as a district to know what that one thing was, figure out what that one thing was, and stick to it. Let me get my mouse off of here. There we go. Figure out what that one thing is and really stick to it. For us, it was that seamless experience for our teachers and our students, and we had to keep coming back to that and keep coming back to that and keep coming back to that to drive our next steps along the way. It meant that we chose interoperability. It meant that we chose to build our own portal. It meant that we didn't choose some other suppliers that we might have chosen because they couldn't fit into that interoperability and into that single system. What else do I wish I knew then? Slow is okay, but still is not. Gwinnett moves slowly in general anyway. We got a lot of processes that we follow. Sometimes the slowness over these years has been at our choice because we wanted to test out everything and make sure we were going in the right direction. Sometimes it was things beyond our control. But the important thing is that we've kept that vision, we've stuck with it, we've had champions for it. I've had to be that champion on a number of occasions to keep this in the forefront. 10 years for an initiative in a large district is a long time. The fact that we are still talking about E-Class is kind of a success in and of itself. But we couldn't stand still. We had to keep moving, and this is a great example of what's kept us moving, because when I come to conferences like this and hear from you all the things you're doing, and hear Leilani preach at us like she did during lunchtime, I panic. And I go back to my district and say, oh my gosh, we're not doing enough, we've got to do more. So that's helped us keep moving forward and not be still. And here's the third thing that I wish that I know now. It is smarter to travel in groups. It's had to be a partnership between curriculum and instruction for us. If you're in a small district where you don't have a lot of people that can step up and take on different roles, this is your network. Find your partnerships externally. It's meant we've had to have our strategic partner IBM, our partners D2L and Safari and ClassWorks engaged. We've needed to be in IMS Global Consortium. We've needed to be in Learning Council. And I encourage you to not just refuse to do it alone. Find a team. It's smarter to travel in groups. Does anybody know what this is? Do y'all remember the name of these things? Does Magic Eye posters ring a bell for anybody? Remember, if you stare at just the colors and the details, you don't see anything, but if you kind of look beyond it and focus outside of it for a little while, some other kind of element, some kind of design shows up. They were real popular back in the 90s. We have a lot of processes. We get stuck in those processes a lot, but if we didn't pull back and remember what our ultimate goal was and what the design was that we were looking for, we would have probably taken a lot more wrong paths. So I would say, you got to water your trees, you got to do your processes, you got to focus on those granular details like having day one, being up and ready with your digital content. But if you don't pull back occasionally and say, but what's the one thing we're after? What's the most important thing? And whatever that is for you, then you're likely to not get that beautiful design that you're after in the end. So 10 years later, here we are. We still don't feel like we've reached it, but what are we doing now? We're looking 10 years beyond. We're looking 10 years out. Where do we need to go from here? And that's what these conferences are about too. I like inspiration, and more than that, I like British accents. So I'm going to share this with you.
So you could clap and the TV will turn on, or you can scratch your ear and the volume will go up. You could just have the watch and it could open up a hologram of your teacher and she would teach you from her house.
Classrooms all over the world in the same year group were connected. So when analysing a piece of literature or something, you'd have ideas from people all over the country.
You could have like this teleporting pad in a room. You stand on it and then it asks you where you want to go, and then you teleport and then you just appear out of thin air.
There'll be VR, but you might not actually need the headsets. I mean, students could examine fossils in the desert in Arizona and then 10 minutes later be playing with penguins in Antarctica.
Flying things coming to your house, delivering it and flying back to its base.
Instead of using a device, I think we might be wearing devices, things like mixed reality or augmented reality devices that we wear.
Pupils might have their own individual bot to call upon to aid them in their work or to find some relevant sources of information.
Imagine if we could bring Minecraft to life using VR.
The thing that most excites me about technology is about inspiring students.
Technology's changed so much since I was little that you don't really know where it's headed anymore. They keep coming up with something new and you're like, oh, never thought of that, that's useful.
I know you, that excited you just like it did me. That's our jam, is looking what's next for kids and what technology can do for us. So I just want to close with saying, keep looking to the future, find that one thing, keep tracking, don't give up, and don't forget to be the GOAT.